Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Wow.
This is where we take the sources you need, be the market reports, scientific papers, or in this case, a really brilliantly constructed piece of fiction, and we extract the critical knowledge from them.
And today we are immersing ourselves in a fascinating world.
Yeah, we're diving into the dizzying, really high-stakes world of modern royalty using Rebecca Armitage's novel, The Heir Apparent, as our map.
And it's a fascinating choice for a deep dive, because what Armitage does is use this fictional framework of the British monarchy to perform, well, a kind of surgical examination of very real-world pressures.
Right.
The demands of duty, the mechanics of succession, and the heavy, often brutal cost of maintaining institutional secrecy.
So our mission today is really to dissect that narrative.
Exactly, to reveal the architecture of that secrecy and to understand the sudden, devastating shock of unexpected duty that really defines the life of our main character, Princess Alexandrina, or Lexi Villiers.
And the source material, it just wastes absolutely no time setting the stakes. The core nugget is this. Lexi, who has spent years building this fierce, independent life.
As a doctor in Australia, in self-imposed exile.
Yes, and she is just thrust back into the heart of the palace machine. And this isn't a slow change. It happened over a few brutal days following a catastrophe.
Precisely. She lost her mother years earlier, which is a key trauma, but now in one catastrophic blow, she loses her father and her twin brother.
It's unimaginable.
And just overnight, she transforms from being the secondary twin, the runaway princess who deliberately shunned her birthright, into the only viable candidate left. She is now the heir apparent to the British throne.
Okay, so let's unpack this for a second. We're dealing with immediate, profound grief, a completely shattered identity, a secret life she built 14,000 kilometers away that she has to abandon.
Instantly.
And looming over it all is this ruthless uncle just waiting in the wings, and he's fueled by a multi-billion-pound incentive to see her fail.
That's the setup. It's an incredible pressure cooker from page one.
We absolutely have to start with the catastrophe itself. The event that slams the door on Lexi's old life, the avalanche in January 2023. Armitage doesn't just gloss over it. She grounds the tragedy in these really shocking, specific details.
She does, and those details establish both the randomness of the event and the deep flaws within the royal system.
So where are they?
The setting is Courchevel at 2,730 feet, which is an altitude that immediately compounds the danger. The people involved are Lexi's father, Prince Frederick, Papa, her twin brother, Louis, and Louis's closest friend, Chris.
And they're all experienced skiers, right?
Louis and Chris are. They're described as lighter, more agile, and they glide safely over a dangerous bank of snow. The instructor, who later gives testimony, he explains the chilling mechanism of what happened next.
And that involves her father, Prince Frederick.
Yes. He was, as the source puts it, lumbering along at a slower pace. He's heavier, and he completely fails to notice this jagged fault line that had started to form in the snow behind him.
So the snow didn't just fall on him?
No, it turned to liquid around him. It was an immediate, catastrophic loss of balance that just sealed their fate.
And what really stands out here is the immediate failure of the security. This is the Royal Protection Detail. These are supposed to be highly trained professionals.
And they were utterly useless in this specific environment. It's a crucial insight that Armitage drives home.
So what was the problem?
Well, these officers, they were trained for high-profile threats, stalkers, crowd control, maybe a gunshot wound in London.
Urban threats.
Exactly. But up there in the backcountry on that mountain, they were at a loss. Completely ill-equipped and untrained for a real-time, high-altitude rescue scenario.
So who steps up?
The real hero, the one who prevents an even worse disaster, is a 24-year-old instructor. He's the one who provides that stark contrast between palace professionalism and, well, real-world competence.
What did he do?
He grabbed a tree trunk, held his breath against the moving snow, and immediately sent the SOS signal. We're told 6 crucial minutes pass before the expert local skiers arrived.
With the right gear.
With the shovels and probes, yes. They injected the only real hope into the situation, while the highly paid royal security just stood by, unable to even locate the victims buried under the ice.
It's a tragic outcome.
It is. Papa died in the snow. Louis was rescued, but he was critically injured. There were whispers of brain death before he died peacefully a bit later at Visp Medical Center.
So the moment Lexi is extracted from Australia,
Yeah.
That's one of those narrative details that really sticks with you. She's not a person in mourning anymore.
She's a commodity.
Yeah.
A high-value asset whose immediate presence is constitutionally and politically required. She flies back on a telco billionaire's Dassault Falcon, just a stark contrast to the small, anonymous life she built.
And the moment she steps onto that jet, the royal life is imposed on her. It's immediate and almost grotesquely symbolic.
It really is.
So talk us through that nail polish detail. It sounds so trivial, but it feels loaded with meaning.
Oh, it's the perfect microcosm of her transition. Lexi had been wearing this month-old, dark, slightly chipped nail polish. The name of the color was Courgette Coquette. Wow. And an aide just slides next to her on the plane, not to ask about her pain, but to scrub it off immediately with acetone.
Just like that.
Just like that. That single mundane action is the definitive end of Dr. Alexandrina Villiers, MD. It's the stripping away of her autonomous identity and the imposition of a perfectly polished, controlled, royal facade.
And emotionally, she's a wreck. She's doubled over, flinching from this grief described as hot claws in her lungs. Yet even then, we see the rigidity of the palace protocol.
Yes, she's being comforted, but the comfort itself is forbidden.
What do you mean?
She's momentarily consoled by Stuart, an adored aide. He murmurs, "Breathe, ma'am," and puts a gentle hand on her shoulder. But that physical touch, it's forbidden. Aides are forbidden from touching members of the family.
So it's a brief crack in the cold formalism.
A brief, crucial crack. It shows the genuine humanity underneath all the protocol, but only for a moment, because the system reasserts itself immediately upon landing. Her return becomes a political declaration.
Absolutely. When she lands at Northolt, she is met by the UK Prime Minister, Jenny Walsh. And the first order of business isn't consoling the grieving heir.
No, it's presenting her to the public as a symbol of stability. Lexi's hair is straightened, recurled, and rendered lustrous. She is instantaneously transformed from a heartbroken doctor into a key strategic asset ready for public consumption.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights that national political hunger for stability. I mean, it seems so cynical that PM Jenny Walsh, who made her name in the union movement and plotted against the monarchy, would be the one to rush to meet the new heir.
The source implies a very cynical calculation. Walsh recognizes that the stability of the state, regardless of her own Republican leanings, now rests entirely on this newly appointed heir.
So it's not about Lexi as a person.
Not at all. It's about stabilizing the mechanism of power. The old life is gone. Duty has arrived, packaged in a meticulously chosen Stella McCartney fitted dress and fleece-lined stockings deemed necessary for the procession that follows. This is Lexi's first taste of realizing her personal tragedy is now the nation's political theater.
Lexi's sudden elevation, it just thrusts her into this long, dark shadow of constitutional drama that began the moment she and Louis were born, December 28, 1993. We're not just talking about modern laws here. We're diving into centuries of these archaic rules and historical precedents that suddenly become hyper-relevant.
That specific birth, with Lexi arriving just 2 minutes before Louis, was a constitutional headache from day one. Despite all the strides made toward gender equality and succession laws around the world, this family was still governed by these ancient stipulations about twins.
And the rule was?
The rule was clear. The first child delivered was the heir. However, and this is the massive caveat that defined Lexi's entire youth, unless she was a girl followed by a living boy, in which case she slid down the line of succession at the first sighting of his tiny regal penis.
That's a very graphic way of putting it.
The source is very direct, and it hammers home the sheer arbitrariness of the system. 2 minutes of biology combined with gender determine their entire lifelong trajectory.
And the book expertly grounds this modern absurdity in some pretty bloody history.
Yes, Armitage uses that historical connection brilliantly to reinforce this generational struggle. We get the story of Charles, a Villiers ancestor, who died of smallpox. That made his 3-year-old son, William, king, and William's mother, Barbara Villiers, the Queen Regent.
And she consolidated power.
For years. She even retired the title of Prince of Wales because she didn't want the title to potentially undermine her son's authority. This history is crucial because it shows how the House of Villiers crept inside the House of Stuart, like a slow, deliberate piece of ivy, cementing their power.
So the message is clear.
The female twin was always secondary. Their lineage was steeped in a history where being female meant you slid down the hierarchy of power.
Meanwhile, back in the present day, the immediate environment at the palace is less about mourning and more about family intrigue and just sheer entitled absurdity. Queen Eleanor, Granny, she's not exactly a source of comfort.
No. Granny is defined by this bizarre mix of frugality and extreme rigidity. She insists Christmas presents cost less than 20 pounds,
Right.
yet she's completely consumed by the minute-to-minute health of her dogs and horses. She maintains perfect posture even while sipping tea. She just embodies the cold, unyielding nature of the institution.
And she has Louis's widow, Amira, staying with her.
She does, but Lexi's return, with all her chaos and grief, it pushes the queen past her breaking point. The source says she was unable to cope with the noise, mess, and chaos made by the posh pair, which led to Lexi and Amira being evicted to Cumberland 1.
Well, this eviction, as the source notes, was immediately leaked to the tabloids.
Which is key. The palace machinery, or maybe the forces working against Lexi, instantly spun this as Lexi throwing tantrums, refusing to share space. It reinforced that idea of the difficult runaway princess.
And then we meet our antagonist, Prince Richard, the Duke of Clarence, Lexi's uncle. The book paints him as both ridiculously demanding and utterly ruthless.
He's the perfect combination of entitlement and political calculation, a man who believes he is owed every comfort. That portable leather toilet seat he travels with.
And the teeth.
The blinding white veneers covering his top teeth while his bottom row remains untouched and uneven. These are all metaphors for the superficial elegance and deep-seated hypocrisy of his character.
But the most telling demand is the butter.
The butter. He requires it to be served in 3 perfectly scooped balls. Not 2, not 4, 3. That detail tells you everything you need to know about the sheer entitled absurdity Lexi is returning to.
And he immediately uses the funeral planning as a tactical battlefield.
Precisely. Richard doesn't wait. He immediately tries to position his own daughters, Bertie and Demelza, arguing they are princesses of Clarence and blood princesses, demanding they lead the procession. It's pure maneuvering. Absolutely. It's aimed at undermining Lexi's immediate authority. He's showing the public and the institution that he has alternative heirs ready to go. And what's more, his staff arranged for Lexi to be kicked out of her childhood room while she was still asleep.
A petty psychological attack.
Designed to disorient her and isolate her.
But this political maneuvering, it's all rooted in this staggering financial incentive. We have to get into the constitutional mechanics of the Duchy of Exeter, which is Richard's billion-pound motivation. This is where it gets really interesting.
This is the critical mechanism Armitage uses to drive the entire conflict. The Duchy of Exeter is this massive landholding, a huge source of annual revenue, and it's reserved specifically and only for the monarch's eldest son and heir.
So it's not just a title, it's about generations of wealth.
It is. Lexi is now the heir after Louis's death, but crucially, she is not a male child.
So the archaic rule, male primogeniture, it's not just sentimental. It's an economic weapon.
It is absolutely an economic weapon. The duchy's profits, which the source estimates to be worth £1 billion, can never be Lexi's as long as she holds the claim under the existing rules.
But the moment she relinquishes her claim,
Richard instantly becomes the heir apparent. And as a male, he legally satisfies that eldest son and heir requirement and gets immediate access to that staggering fortune.
and Lexi understands this. She realizes the only thing standing between the crown and £1 billion is me.
Yes, it connects his petty entitlement with his colossal ambition. Richard's fight isn't just for prestige or a seat on the throne. It is motivated by a fortune that the crown's ancient, unyielding laws have put just out of his reach.
He needs her gone.
He needs her gone to satisfy the rule and claim the money. This structural flaw, a monarchy running on centuries-old exclusionary rules, is exactly what allows Richard's toxicity to thrive.
To really understand Lexi's ultimate choice, we have to grasp why she fled in the first place, and I guess what she built that she's now fighting so hard to protect. The catalyst for her self-exile was her mother's death.
Yes, Isla's tragic death in 2012 when she was pulled from the Ligurian Sea.
And the funeral was the breaking point.
The funeral for Princess Isla was Lexi's point of irreversible departure. The eulogy was delivered not by a family member in the inner circle, but by Isla's twin brother, James, the Duke of Kilchurn.
The one who lived as a farmer in Tasmania.
Exactly. Anonymously. And he completely abandoned the palace-approved script. In front of all the assembled power brokers, he calmly disemboweled Papa and Granny.
A public shaming of the institution.
It was more than that. It was a public declaration that validated the private pain that Lexi and Louis felt. He looked directly at them and said, "Our neglect sent you down this path." It was a declaration that the family's environment, its secrecy, its rigidity were actively toxic and had led directly to Isla's death.
And James became her sponsor for freedom in a way. He was performing what you could call generational amends.
That's the perfect phrase for it. He saw his role as making up for the failures of his generation toward his sister. He slipped Lexi his number and said, if you need someone to talk to, or if you need a rescue.
And she took the rescue.
Immediately. She abandoned her original volunteer itinerary, flew straight to Tasmania, and enrolled in a chemistry degree. James paid for her education.
Why?
He reasoned that it never seemed right to me that I got everything when her father died and Isla got nothing. This wasn't charity. It was a deeply personal attempt to atone for that past neglect and to give Lexi the independence her mother was never allowed to have.
And she built a truly normal life in Hobart, one that was centered not on privilege, but on hard work and earned merit.
And that earned merit was everything to her. She pursued her medical residency, aiming for the obstetrics track, and she worked constantly. Her drive was so intense that her supervisors praised her for caring too much for her patients.
Her singular goal was to become
Dr. Alexandrina Villiers, MD. The title she cared about was the one she earned, not the one she was born with.
her social circle, her core friends. They reflected this new identity. Who were the people anchoring her true life?
She had Finn, her flamboyant, gay flatmate who was a surgical applicant, and then Jack Jennings, the vineyard owner. And Jack was the most interesting person she knew. He borrowed library books, he was grounded, and he was blessedly completely oblivious to her HRH title.
A simple, unburdened existence.
Which contrasted so sharply with the oppressive formality of the palace.
Yet her romantic life was complicated. And it seems like it was complicated precisely because she couldn't shed her instinct for secrecy.
This is where her past bled into her new life. Her relationship with Ben, her handsome, irritable, off-limits boss lover at the hospital, it only thrived in the shadows of their affair.
And he called her out on it.
He did. Ben eventually saw through her attempts at normalcy. He accused her of being incapable of living a real life out in the open, claiming she secretly liked the hidden, high-pressure nature of their relationship.
That's a critical insight. That she was addicted to the architecture of secrecy.
It is, and it contrasts so sharply with Jack.
Right.
Jack represented genuine, open happiness, but Lexi kept him platonic because she feared what that kind of honesty might cost her. It was only when she found out Jack broke up with his long-term girlfriend because he was in love with Lexi that she realized the true emotional distance she had created.
A wall of denial.
A wall of denial around her most authentic feelings.
And that desire for freedom, it came with a very high institutional cost when Papa withdrew her protection in 2016. It felt punitive.
Oh, it was a clear, punitive message. She finished her undergrad, she refused to come home, and so he cut her off. She was still third in line, still vulnerable, but losing the security detail also meant shedding the most visible symbol of her confinement.
An unexpected relief.
Yes. She realized her HRH title felt like standing naked in a huge crowd. So while the security detail was gone, she was also left financially exposed. Her allowance wasn't designed to support a doctor in residency. Her exile was about survival and autonomy, not just simple rebellion.
Lexi's identity, her freedom, and the tragedy that follows. It's all intrinsically linked to this profound family secret, the one involving Louis, Chris, and Amira. The source material details this formative discovery way back in 2009.
This secret is the foundation upon which Louis's entire public life was built. The discovery happened away from prying eyes. On the mound at their school, Astley, Lexi stumbled upon Louis and Chris.
And what did she see?
She saw them swaying together and kissing tenderly, with Louis's cheek resting on Chris's shoulder, his eyes closed. This was the silent, formative moment when Lexi understood the brutal choice her brother faced, duty or authenticity.
They kept this love a secret from everyone.
From everyone except Lexi and Amira. And Armitage even includes this brilliant, subtle detail that confirms the depth of their deception years later. The famous tabloid photo from the school dance. Years after it was taken, Lexi is looking at it and notices something no one else had ever caught. Louis and Chris's fingers were gently clasped together just behind her left shoulder.
Wow. An intimate hidden gesture.
Confirming their secret relationship. A secret that, as Louis later confirms, Papa knows and he doesn't know. He maintains this plausible deniability, but the risk of exposure is perpetually high.
And this secret, it dictated Louise's future, leading directly to this elaborate marriage of convenience with Amira, who became the Duchess of Somerset. This was clearly orchestrated by Amira's mother.
Oh, Vicky Shankar is drawn as a force of social ambition. The daughter of a plumber who plotted her children's schooling like a continental war, just determined to breach the highest gates of the establishment.
And the engagement itself was a masterclass in facade.
It was. Louis used their mother's emerald ring, a piece that was legally intended for Lexi, for Amira. And the palace spin machine immediately fabricated a story for the tabloids that Lexi had joyfully gifted it in celebration.
But the truth of the pact, the full emotional transaction, that's revealed during a conversation between Lexi and Amira about a trip to Patagonia.
Right. Amira just lays bare the transactional reality. She admits she was going with Louis and Chris, just doing them a favor. She was the essential misdirection they needed to conduct their private life abroad without suspicion.
And she was okay with this.
Amira was pragmatic. She was happy with a marriage of convenience, provided she got the life of a future queen, including access to the famous tiara, the Heart of India.
It's a profound sacrifice, and yet a very practical alliance.
It's an arrangement rooted in emotional denial and institutional necessity. Louis corroborates this. He tells Lexi, Amira and I are friends, we'll take care of each other. He confirms Granny's giving them Sherburne House, and importantly, Amira's happy for me and Chris, and she wants this life.
It sounds like an insane 19th century conversation.
And Louis sadly notes that. He says their family was about 100 years behind everyone else in terms of acceptable social norms for the heir.
And the burden of this secret is compounded by the shadow of their mother's death. When Louis visits Lexi in Tasmania in 2020, just before his wedding, their bond over that trauma is palpable.
This is a crucial segment because it shows how the family lives are interconnected and generational. Louis confesses to Lexi that he's haunted by this recurring dream of hearing their mum screaming from inside the bonfire, begging for help.
Oh, that's awful.
And he asks Lexi if she believes their mum was calling for them when she died in the Ligurian Sea. This shared trauma reinforces their bond and their mutual desire to escape the palace's toxic influence.
And most critically, Louis confirms that the real threat to their secret comes directly from Richard.
He does. Louis is clear that Papa knows and he doesn't know about him, and Chris, he maintains that state of denial. But the real danger is Richard, whose ambition is so colossal that he is guaranteed to discover and exploit this truth. Louis confirms Richard is the ultimate threat, and the stakes of the succession fight suddenly become existential.
So the narrative tension just accelerates sharply into November 2023, right after the tragedy. Lexi now has to operate in this highly toxic palace environment, armed with the knowledge that Richard is maneuvering against her.
And this is where the full extent of Richard's ruthlessness and, even more shatteringly, the depth of the family's decades-long secrets are finally revealed.
Where do the pieces start falling into place?
It starts when Lexi confronts Annabelle, Papa's widow, at his old house. Annabelle confesses that Richard had, in fact, discovered Louis and Chris's relationship.
How?
The most likely method was a private investigator following them to the privacy of Sherburne House. And Richard wasn't just threatening to expose them, he was threatening to destabilize Frederick's own position as king.
Forcing him to pay for silence. It's classic blackmail.
It is, and this wasn't an isolated incident, it was a perpetual cycle of financial extortion. Annabelle reveals that Richard had previously blackmailed Frederick using information about their affair back in the 90s.
So the fear was that if Lexi became queen,
Richard would hold the Louis and Chris secret over her perpetually. It ensures unending misery, submission, and a constant drain on resources. It makes the crown a gilded prison. Lexi realizes that to rule would be to sign up for a lifetime of Richard's blackmail.
But the truth about Lexi's mother's death is the most shattering revelation, because it forces Lexi to confront her own unwitting complicity in the cover-up. She finally gets confirmation from Granny about the desperate decisions made that night in 2012.
This is the emotional fulcrum of the entire novel. Lexi recounts the phone call she made to Papa the night Mum died. She was a child, and her father told her to be strong, to pack everything, and to make the bed.
A deliberate, calculated action.
Designed to create a scene of quiet domestic order. And Papa's response when Lexi mentioned they had champagne a la Lexi was this groan of shame that Lexi now recognizes as the sound of a man realizing his chance at protection.
So Lexi had accidentally constructed her father's perfect alibi.
She did. By saying she was drinking, confused, and alone on the boat, she protected her father from any suspicion of involvement. Granny later confirms the critical detail. Papa already paid that Italian man Davide Rossi to get you off the boat.
So Lexi realizes her father used her innocent actions.
Yes, to ensure his daughter was protected from scandal and that he was entirely absolved of suspicion regarding the death of his wife.
The psychological fallout must have been immense. She wasn't just a victim of the secrecy, she was an architect of it, without even knowing.
It's the ultimate betrayal by the institution she was born into. She was a child who did what she was told, and those actions protected her father and cemented the official, devastating lie of her mother's death. Lexi realizes she had never really got off that boat.
The trauma and the lie had followed her for a decade.
And that realization is what gives her the profound resolve to choose integrity over duty.
This resolve, it leads to the final, brilliant chess moves against Richard. She confronts him publicly at her Nairobi clinic reception in November 2023.
Yes, she knows he's paid Rossi to keep silent, but she also knows he's failing to secure that silence. So Richard, confident in his power, makes the ultimate threat. He snarls, "I can have Mr. Rossi on the front page of the Post tomorrow."
He's threatening her with a truth she has just begun to own.
Exactly. He claims Lexi's night on the Italian Riviera would confirm all public suspicions about her wild past and would definitively sink her reign.
But Lexi counters with devastating precision.
She implies she has already neutralized his threat by leveraging the failure of his network. She says, "Mr. Rossi and I spoke a few days ago. He's still waiting for you to deliver on all those promises you made." She's using Richard's own ruthless tactics against him.
And she suggests her friends have been more loyal than his contacts.
Which leads us to the complex layer of loyalty and manipulation embodied by Amira and Mary.
Right, this is a moment of complex ethics. We learn that Amira's supposed betrayal, her role in keeping Lexi in London, was actually an act of desperate loyalty.
Orchestrated through the Queen's own network. Amira confesses that aides, acting on the Queen's behalf, explicitly told her to keep Lexi in London.
And she engineered the placement of Mary Williams as Lexi's aide.
Specifically requested her. Amira knew Mary from Astley, knew she was a superfan who would be able to manipulate Lexi into staying in the UK. The purpose of this manipulation was to stabilize the line of succession and keep Richard from gaining power.
So Mary was a brilliant spy, recruited to essentially gaslight Lexi into accepting the throne.
Exactly. Mary's history confirmed her qualifications. A brilliant shell at Astley who won 3 prizes, chemistry, biology, maths, and had previously delivered flowers from the student body to Lexi. She was selected to leverage Lexi's need for positive affirmation. Amira's betrayal was an act of profound, if manipulative, loyalty to the crown and to Louis's memory, aimed entirely at keeping Lexi in power and Richard out.
So, with the full truth finally laid bare about Richard's blackmail, her father's lies, and the manipulative loyalty of her closest circle, Lexi makes the ultimate choice: agency over inherited destiny.
And the decision point arrives on her 30th birthday, December 28th, 2023.
Her 30th birthday is pivotal for a couple of reasons.
Firstly, she reaches the age where she gains access to her inheritance, a considerable sum of over £12.7 million. This wasn't just pocket money.
No, it was financial independence.
Secured by a provision Papa had made with the trustee, Anthony Eastoff. And that detail is a crucial piece of character insight into her father. Despite all his secrecy, he still wanted her to succeed.
It's his final, hidden gesture of love.
It is. The provision essentially said, if Lexi could make it to 30 without needing his help, he knew she would be all right. This financial and emotional independence gives her the platform to act without relying on the crown's allowance.
And so she sets her escape plan in motion, leveraging the political contacts she'd been forced to make.
Right. She secretly contacted PM Jenny Walsh, who, despite her Republican leanings, provided a crucial legal lifeline, connecting Lexi with a constitutional scholar named Emmanuel Mensa.
And the act of relinquishment itself. The moment she signs the document, officially giving up her claim to the throne and ensuring Richard becomes king, it's brilliantly rendered as dramatically anticlimactic.
It is. It's not in a great hall or a formal office.
No.
It happens hastily in a van, with Mary acting as a formal witness, and with the carpet cleaner's trolley waiting nearby.
That trolley containing her dog, Chino, is the perfect cover.
It is. The whole scene underscores how the most consequential constitutional decision of the decade is being made in the grimy, unglamorous reality of a back alley, just to facilitate an escape.
And her final conversation with Granny before she leaves is so revealing about the institutional acceptance of deceit.
Lexi confronts the Queen directly. She confesses she cannot keep burying the family's secrets anymore, and Granny remains unruffled.
Still maintaining that perfect posture.
Always. And she confirms the depth of Frederick's past lies. She tells Lexi that Frederick had a strange attraction to secrecy, and that his first instinct was always to lie. And then she confirms it again. He already paid that Italian man to get you off the boat.
And Lexi understands.
She understands that the price of her duty would be a lifetime spent upholding this generational lie, and she simply cannot pay it.
The escape is not the end of her story, though. It's the beginning of her public reckoning. She gives this explosive interview to a journalist, Dee Porter, in Hong Kong.
This is her ultimate power play against Richard. She's choosing to deploy the truth as her weapon. She tells Dee Porter she is there to talk about the real circumstances of her mother's death, why she is unable to wear the crown, and critically, who their future king really is.
Richard.
By revealing the story of Louis and Chris and her father's cover-up, she is stripping Richard of the very secrets he intended to use to blackmail her forever.
And in a final moment of unexpected grace, we hear from Davide Rossi, the Italian man who rescued her all those years ago.
Rossi tells Dee Porter he wasn't looking for payment or fame. He simply wanted to be truthful. He calls Lexi and her mother Bellezza and Carina. This simple act of human integrity from outside the gilded cage just reinforces the purity of the life Lexi is choosing.
And so, she returns home, a doctor with a fresh start.
James meets her at the Tasmanian airport on her 30th birthday. He confirms the final piece of the puzzle. Amira, in a final act of loyalty to Lexi's happiness, told Jack all of it.
Allowing Lexi to shed that final, crushing layer of secrecy.
Exactly. The final scene shows Lexi driving to Jack's vineyard. And when he turns, waiting for her, she realizes that her entire 5-month period in London was a denial, trying to believe she could forget him. All her feelings surge back, cementing her choice.
A genuine life.
A genuine life and a return to her medical residency in 2 weeks. Lexi chose integrity, authenticity, and Jack over a crown built on relentless lies and the toxic family dynamics of the palace.
What an incredible analysis of the Heir Apparent. Recounting Lexi's journey reveals these profound lessons about power, the necessity of secrets, and the enormous cost of maintaining a seemingly perfect royal image.
It really does.
Her decision to walk away, to choose the scalpel over the scepter, is the ultimate counter-narrative to that idea that duty is inevitable and inescapable.
It fundamentally questions the concept of agency within the institution. Lexi spent her life thinking she had to either conform entirely or flee entirely, but her final decision proved that personal honesty, even explosive, reputation-destroying honesty, was the most powerful weapon she possessed against inherited duty.
She used the system's own secrets to dismantle her obligation to it.
Exactly. The toxic machinery run by men like Richard, she turned it on itself.
The key takeaways from this fictional account are startling in their clarity about the pressures royalty faces. First, that staggering financial motive, the $1 billion Duchy of Exeter, which fueled Richard's political attacks.
That arbitrary rule based on gender created a massive economic target. It was the whole engine of the conflict.
Second, the decades-long and deeply moving family pact between Louis, Chris, and Amira, who sacrificed their identities and embraced a marriage of convenience to preserve Louis's place and, inadvertently, keep Richard out of power.
It just underscores the profound compromises forced upon those born into this life.
And finally, the painful truth that Lexi herself was complicit in the cover-up of her mother's death. A childhood act of compliance that tethered her to the palace's lies until she decided to expose it all. Her journey from unwitting accomplice to truth-teller is really the central theme of her freedom.
Which leaves us with a provocative thought for you, the listener. Lexi had to choose between being an honest individual, a doctor, a partner, and being a queen. In a world that's increasingly obsessed with transparency, the monarchy relies entirely on maintaining this fragile facade of secrecy and denial. Will Lexi's public truth-telling about the palace's corruption and Richard's ambition force a radical, rules-changing reform? Or is the only way for a modern monarchy to survive to keep perpetually burying its secrets?